Supply chain management. Contents. Introduction, trends in supply chain management, risk management, and resiliency. Supply chain management is the strategic coordination of business functions within a business organization and throughout its supply chain for the purpose of integrating supply and demand management. Supply chain managers are people at various levels of organization who are responsible for managing supply and demand both within and across business organizations. Logistic is the part of a supply chain involved with the forward and reverse flow of goods, services, cash, and information, materials handling, warehousing, inventory, order fulfillment, and distribution, third-party logistic, and reverse logistics. This picture views about a typical manufacturing supply chain and a typical service supply chain. And this one is a goods and services flow clockwise in this diagram, and cash flows counterclockwise. Information flows in both directions. This picture views about a farm to market supply chain. The farm supplier, bakery suppliers, trucking suppliers, mail suppliers. The goal of supply chain management is to match supply to demand as effectively and efficiently as possible. Key aspects relate to determining the appropriate level of outsourcing. 2. Managing procurement. Number 3. Managing suppliers. 4. Managing customer relationships. And the last is being able to quickly identify problems and respond to them. Trends in supply chain management. Although different industries and different businesses vary in terms of where they are in the evolution of their supply chain management, many businesses emphasize the following. First, measuring supply chain ROI. Second, greening the supply chain. Regulating outsourcing, integrating IT, adapting lean principles, and managing risks. Measuring supply chain ROI. It enables managers to incorporate economics into outsourcing and other decisions, giving them a rational basis of managing their supply chains. Greening the supply chain. It is generating interest for a variety of reasons, including corporate responsibility, regulations, and public pressure. Regulating outsourcing is the companies are taking a second look at outsourcing, especially global suppliers. Business organizations outsource for a variety of reasons. Integrating IT produces real-time data that can enhance strategic planning and help businesses to control costs, measure quality and productivity, respond quickly to problems and improve supply chain operators. And managing risk is, for some businesses, the supply chain is a major source of risk, so it is essential to adopt procedures for managing risk. Risk management and resiliency. Risk management involves identifying risk, assessing their likelihood of occurring and their potential impact, and then developing strategies for addressing those risks. Strategies pertain to risk avoidance, risk reduction, and risk sharing with supply partners. Resiliency is the ability of a business to recover from an event that negatively impacts the supply chain. Recovery is a function of the severity of the impact and the plans that are in place to cope with the events. Key elements of successful risk management include know your suppliers. Second, provide supply chain visibility. The third is develop event response capability. Supply chain visibility, it means that a major trading partner can connect to any part of its supply chain to access data real time on inventory levels, shipment status, and similar key information. And the event response capability is the ability to detect and respond to unplanned events such as delayed shipment or a warehouse running low on a certain items. Shortening the supply chain. As businesses search for ways to reduce transportation time and cost, some are placing more emphasis on using nearby suppliers, storage facilities, and processing centers.
Supply chain management, global supply chain. As businesses increasingly make use of outsourcing and pursue opportunities beyond their domestic markets, their supply chains are becoming increasingly global. So, mataas ka no siya globally. So, for example, product design often uses inputs from around the world and products are sold globally. So, as businesses recognize the strategic importance of effective supply chain management, they are also discovering that global supply chains have additional complexities. So, when we say complexities, man siya mga hindrance, siguro mga like that, something like that, that were either negligible or non-existent in domestic operation. So, mo ni siya ang mga complexities, language and cultural differences, currency fluctuations, armed conflicts, increased transportation costs, and lead times, and the increased need for trust and cooperation among the supply chain partners. So risk can relate to the supply, like for example, the supplier failure, the quality issues, the sustainability issues, the transportation issues, pirates, terrorism cost, the increasing commodity cost and demand, the decreasing demand volatility, and transportation issues. Still, other risks can involve intellectual rights issues, contract compliance issues, competitive pressure, forecasting errors, and inventory management. So, a positive factor of globalization has been the set of technological advances in communications. So, the ability to link operations around the world with real time information exchange. Consequently, information technology has a key role in integrating operations across global supply chains. So, unsa kaya ang key role? So, ato na siyang may bawan. So, ERP and supply chain management. So, supply chain management that integrates ERP is a formal approach to effectively plan and manage all the resources of business enterprise. So, when we say ERP, so muna siyang enterprise resource planning. So, implementation of ERP involves establishing operating systems, operating performance measurements. This is to enable them to manage business operations and meet business and financial objectives. So, ERP encompasses supply chain management activities such as planning for demand and managing supply, inventory replenishment, production, warehousing, and transportation. So, dako kay nagtabang ang ERP di ay kay sa siya ang makatabang siya sa tuwa sa pagplano as well as sa pag-manage sa mga supply, sa production, apil na tanan sa warehousing and transportation. So, ERP software, so more software than in ERP, also plays a key role in centralizing transaction data. So ERP software provides the ability to coordinate, monitor, and manage a supply chain. So kay software man siya, so it has the ability to coordinate. Makatabang siya sa pag-coordinate sa relationship between the consumer and the producer, maka-monitor and manage a supply chain. So, dili na sa supplier relationship management. So, ERP integrates purchasing, receiving information about vendor ratings and performance lead times, quality electronic funds, disbursements, simplifying process and enabling analysis of those processes. So, ang supplier relationship management under sa ERP integrates purchasing. So, di lang kay siya ang yang key role ato kay yang key role ato kay maka siyang mag-plan o mag-manage. So, as well as maka-receive pud itag information ani sa ERP. So, performance management. So, these aspects of ERP pulls together information on cost and profits, productivity, quality performance, and customer satisfaction. So, when we say performance management, it's all about the performance of like for example, sa mga employees. So, kung maigay mo performance, so, of course, the cost and profits will arise. The productivity will kuan kay siya will manage. The quality performance is kanang kuan nindot kay siya, and the customer satisfaction. So of course kay nakamit ka man sa performance level, performance base ang customer, syempre there are possibilities nga ma-satisfy sad sila sa ilang mga needs. So sales and order fulfillment includes the ability to provide inventory and quality management, track returns, and schedule and monitor production, packaging, and distribution. So, sales and order fulfillment. So, like for example, naatay mga products o atong di-display. So, of course, ang mga consumers, kung ganahan sila, mo-order sila or mo-palit sila. And, if they want kanang kuan, gusto na ug unsay pamaagi nila silang kuan ipa-deliver. So, mag-schedule ta sa ilahang mga gibay nga goods or products, monitor production, packaging, and distribution. So, ato na siya, imo na siyang i-process. So, customer relationship management. An ERP system not only centralizes basic contract information, details on contracts, payment terms, credit history, and shipping preferences, it also provides information on purchasing patterns, service, and returns. Customer relationship management. So like for example, customer, so may example ani kay Shopee. So kung naka-order sa Shopee, so like for example, pangutan naman jud ka unsay mga payment method, kuan ba kanang cash and delivery, nya and the shipping preferences on pila siya kadlaw before the arrival. It also provides information on purchasing patterns, service, and return. So like for example, if na mga defective products nato sa Shopee, so ikaw kung kuan kay ka nga pagkataw, so makakuan jud ka sa return, kuan process ana niya. Okay, next. Ethics and the supply chain. Every company should develop an ethical supply chain code to guide behavior. So it is a must. So a code should cover behaviors that involves customers, suppliers' behavior, contract negotiation, recruiting, and the environmental issues. Unfortunately, many companies lack the ability to quickly contact most of all the companies in their supply chain and communicate with the supplier on critical issues of ethics and compliance. Although monitoring of supply chain activities is essential, it is only one aspect of maintaining an ethical supply chain. Key steps of companies can take to reduce siya. So, or ito sa small businesses. Small businesses do not always give adequate attention to their supply chain. So, dili ko na kayo sila mahatag og fully attention sa mga supply chains, like for example, the consumer or the one in the company or in the industry, whoever, there are many benefits to be had for small businesses by actively managing their supply chains, including increased efficiencies, reduced cost, excuse me, reduce risk, and increase profits. And size can actually be a competitive advantage for small businesses because they are often more agile than larger companies, enabling them to make decisions and changes more quickly when the need arises. So there are three aspects of supply chain management that are often of concern to small businesses. So they are the inventory management, the reducing risk rather the international trade. So another area that often needs attention is risk management. The key to reducing risk is managing suppliers. Important steps are use only reliable suppliers, determine which suppliers are critical, get to know them and challenges they have, measure supplier performance, like for example the quality, the reliability, the flexibility. So next is the recognize warning signs of supplier issues, like for example the late deliveries, the incomplete orders, the quality problems. So kinahanglan na siyang ma-recognize and kinahanglan mo siyang ma-update siya. So have plans in place to manage supply chain problems, of course. So mo jump in ta diri sa management responsibilities. So generally speaking, corporate management responsibilities have legal, economic, and ethical aspects. So legal responsibilities includes being knowledgeable. So kinahanglan knowledgeable ka why din ka imong hunahuna about the laws and the regulations of the countries where supply chain exists. Obeying the laws, mo follow jud ka and operating to conform the regulation. So economic responsibilities include supplying products and services to meet the demand efficiently as possible. So kung in that one society kung mao na ilang demand, so kinahanglan ma-meet jud to nimo siya. Dayon para kuan nilang needs, suportaan nilang needs or wants ba. Ethical responsibilities includes conducting business in ways that are consistent with the moral standards of society. So next is strategic responsibilities. Top management has certain strategic responsibilities that have a major impact on the success not only of the supply chain management but also for the business itself. So these strategies include first the supply chain strategy alignment. So from the word alignment, so aligning supply and distribution strategies with organizational strategy and deciding on the degree to which outsourcing will be employed. So next is the network configuration, determining the number and local of suppliers, warehouses, productions, operations, facilities, and distribution centers. The information technology. So integrating systems and process through the supply chain to share information including forecasts, inventory status, tracking of shipments and events. Products and services, making decisions on new product and services selection and design. Next is the capacity planning, assessing long-term capacity needs including when and how much will be needed and the degree of flexibility to incorporate. Strategic partnership, partnership choices, level of partnering and degree of formality. Distribution strategy, deciding whether to use centralized or decentralized distribution, and deciding whether to use the organization's own facilities and equipment for distribution to use their third-party logistic providers. Uncertainty and risk reduction, identifying the potential sources of risk and deciding the amount of risk that is acceptable.
K. Tactical and operational responsibility. Tactical responsibilities. Forecasting. Prepare and evaluate forecasts. Sourcing. Choose suppliers and some make or buy decisions. Operations planning. Coordinate an external supply chain and internal operations. Managing inventory. Decide where in the supply chains to store the various types of inventory. Raw materials, semi-finished goods, finished goods. Transportation planning. Match capacity with demand. Collaborating. Work with supply chain partners to coordinate plans. Operational responsibilities. Scheduling. Short-term scheduling of operations and distribution. Receiving. Management of inbound deliveries from suppliers. Transforming. Conversion of inputs into outputs. Order fulfilling. Linking products, resources, and or inventory to specific customer orders. Managing inventory, maintenance and replenishment activities. Shipping, management of outbound deliveries to distribution centers and or customers. Information sharing, exchange of information with supply chain partners. Controlling, control of quality, inventory, and other key variables, and implementing corrective action, including variation reduction when necessary.
Supply chain management. The content is procurement, purchasing interfaces, the purchasing cycle, centralized versus decentralized, ethics in purchasing, and the e-business. Procurement is the process of finding and agreeing to terms and acquiring goods or services or works from an external source, often via a tendering or competitive bidding process. Procurement generally involves making buying decisions under conditions of scarcity. If sound data is available, it's good practice to make use of economic analysis, methods such as cost-benefit analysis or case scenario analysis. If we say scarcity means ang pagnihit sa mga produkto or ang mga palaliton. And the next are purchasing interfaces. Purchasing has interfaces with a number of other functional areas, as well as with outside suppliers. It is the connecting link between the organization and its suppliers. The functional areas of purchasing are the operations, constitute the main source of request for purchase materials, and close cooperation between these units and the purchasing department is vital if quality, quantity, and delivery goals are to be met. And the second one is accounting. Is responsible for handling payments to suppliers and must be notified promptly when goods are received in order to take advantage of several discounts. Design and engineering usually prepare materials, specifications, which must be communicated to purchasing. Receiving checks incoming shipments of purchased items to determine whether quality, quantity, and timing objectives have been met. It moves the goods to temporary storage. If we say receiving, so mauna na siya mag-check sa mga outputs para ready na gani siya shipment. Suppliers or vendors. Work closely with purchasing to learn what materials will be purchased and what kinds of specifications will be required in terms of quality, quantity, and deliveries. Purchasing cycle. The purchasing cycle begins with a request from within the organization to purchase material, equipment, supplies, or other items from outside the organization. And the cycle when the purchasing department is notified that shipment has been received in satisfactory condition. The main steps in the cycle are these: purchasing receives the requisition, purchasing select a supplier, purchasing places the order with a vendor, monitoring orders and the receiving orders. Centralized versus decentralized purchasing. Centralized purchasing is handled by one special department, and the decentralized purchasing individual departments or separate locations handle their own purchasing requirements. Ethics and purchasing. What is ethics in purchasing? So the word ethics refers to the norms for conduct that distinguish between acceptable or acceptable behavior. It also means abiding by the principles governing the practices of one's profession while dealing with colleagues, organizations, and society at large. Therefore, purchasing professionals must have a highly developed sense of a professional ethics to protect their own and the organization's reputation for fair dealing. A-business. A-business refers to the use of facilitate business transaction electronic technology. So, the example of this electronic business, for example, computer is used for debate dealing or handle with our business or what's other kinds of technology that connect that we connect to our or that connected to our business.
Supply chain management. Contents: supplier management, choosing supplier, supplier audits, and supplier certification. First, supplier management. Supplier management is the process that ensures maximum value is received for the money that an organization pays to its suppliers. Because these supplies play a part in the smooth running of an organization, it's important for both supplier and organization to engage properly and effectively. Establishing a proper relationship, managing the requirements, and communicating clearly with suppliers is essential to organization, which means a comprehensive supplier managing policy is required. Second, choosing supplier. When choosing and negotiating with supplier, you should consider value for money, quality, and reliability in an additional to price. Building good relationship with your supplier will ensure that you get the best service possible. Choosing supplier for your business. First, finding supplier. Online is the best way to locate suppliers such as manufacturers and wholesalers. Second, location. Think about location when you're choosing suppliers. Third, reliability. Fourth, stability. Fifth, price. Sixth, business values. Lastly, multiple suppliers. Third, supplier audits. A supplier audit is a tailor-made program that assesses a supplier's quality systems as well as workplace environment and ability to meet standards set by either the client or TUV SUD. A food supplier audit can ensure that your vendors and suppliers are able to undertake and act upon your specific requirements.
Types of suppliers audits: announced audits, unannounced audits, desktop audits, research customer complaints, check if a supplier is outsourcing, the importance of implementing a supplier audit, reveal potential risk, improve customers' satisfaction. Supplier certification. Certification of supplier generally means that the supplier provides a acceptable quality, on-time delivery at the lowest cost. Companies have decided numerous methods, criteria, formats, and approaches to certifying suppliers. Certification is important for many reasons. It has several benefits that vary according to the particular industry and circumstances in which both buyer and suppliers operate. These benefits can include reduced cost, improved quality, reduced lead time, and increased reliability. Thank you. God bless.
Supplier relationship management. Purchasing has the ultimate responsibility for establishing and maintaining good supplier relationships. The type of relationship is often related to the length of contract between buyers and sellers. Short-term contracts involve competitive bidding. Companies post specifications and potential suppliers bid on the contract. Medium-term contracts often involve going relationships. Long-term contracts often involved into partnership, with buyers and sellers cooperating on various issues that tend to benefit both parties. Increasingly, business organizations are establishing long-term relationships with suppliers in certain situations that are based on strategic considerations. Supplier forums to educate potential suppliers about the organization's policies and requirements and to enhance opportunities for receiving contacts. Supplier code of conduct that requires suppliers to maintain safe working conditions, treat workers with respect and dignity, and have production processes that do not harm workers, customers, or the environment. Keeping good relations with suppliers is increasingly recognized as an important factor in maintaining a competitive edge. Many companies are adopting a view of suppliers as partners. The viewpoint stresses a stable relationship with relatively few reliable suppliers who can provide high-quality supplies, maintain precise delivery schedules, and remain flexible relative to changes in productive specifications and delivery schedules. Supplier partnerships. More and more, business organizations are seeking to establish partnerships with other organizations in their supply chains. This implies fewer suppliers, long-term relationships, sharing of information, forecast, sales data, problem alerts, and cooperation in planning. Among the possible benefits are higher quality, increased delivery speed and reliability, lower inventories, lower cost, higher profits, and in general improved operations. There are a number of obstacles to supplier partnerships, not the least of which is that because many of the benefits go to the buyer, suppliers may be hesitant to enter into each relationships. Suppliers may have to increase their investment in equipment, which might put a strain on cash flow. Another possibility is that the cultures of the buyer and supplier might be quite different and not lend themselves to such an arrangement. Strategic partnering. Strategic partnering occurs when two or more business organizations that have complementary products or services that would strategically benefit the others agree to join so that each may realize a strategic benefit. One way this occurs is when a supplier agrees to hold inventory for a customer, thereby reducing the customer's cost of holding the inventory in exchange for the customers agreeing to a long-term commitment, thereby relieving the supplier of the costs that would be needed to continually find new customers, negotiate prices and services, and so on. Collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment (CPFR) is a contractual agreement used to achieve supply chain integration by cooperative management of inventory in the supply chain by major supply chain partners. It involves information sharing, forecasting, and joint decision making. If done well, it can lead to cost savings in inventory, logistics, and merchandising for the partners. Strategic partnering, two or more businesses organizations that have complementary products or services join so that each may realize strategic benefit.
Inventory management. Inventories are a key component of supply chain. Although inventory management is discussed in more detail in other chapters, certain aspects of inventory management are particularly important for supply chain management. The location of inventories is an important factor for effective material flow through the chain and for order fulfillment. Often trade-offs must be made. One approach is to use centralized inventories, which generally results in lower overall inventory than there would be if decentralized inventory were used, because with decentralized inventories, one location may be understocked while another location is overstocked. Conversely, decentralized location can provide faster delivery and generally lower shipping costs. Inventory velocity. It is the speed at which goods move through a supply chain. The greater the velocity, the lower the inventory holding costs, and the faster orders are filled and goods are turned into cash. Without careful management, demand variations can easily cause inventory fluctuations to get out of control. Moreover, periodic ordering and reaction to shortages can magnify variations, causing inventories to oscillate in increasing larger swings. This is called bullwhip effect, in which inventory oscillations become progressively larger looking backward through the supply chain. Because of the pattern of demand variation is analogous to the motion of a bullwhip in response to a slight jerking of the handle. The bullwhip effect is the demand variations begin at the customer end of the chain and become increasingly large as they radiate backward through the chain. The causes of inventory variability can be not only demand variability but also factors such as quality problems, labor problems, unusual weather conditions, and delays in shipment of goods. Adding to this can be communication delays, incomplete communications, and lack of coordination of activities among organizations in the supply chain. The other factors that contribute to bullwhip effect includes forest inaccuracies, overreaction to stockouts, order batching to save on ordering and transportation costs, sales incentives and promotions, and service and product mix changes, which can create uneven demand patterns and liberal return policies. Good supply chain management can overcome the bullwhip effect by strategic buffering of inventory, information sharing, and inventory replenishment based on needs. An example of strategic buffering would be holding the bulk of retail inventory at a distribution center rather than at retail outlets. That way, inventories of specific retail outlets can be replenished as needed based on point of sale information from retail outlets as well as information on retail outlet inventories. Vendor Managed Inventory or VMI. Vendors monitor goods and replenish retail inventories when supplies are low. Vendors track goods shipped to distributors and retail outlets. VMI lets companies reduce overhead by shifting responsibility for owning, managing, and replenishing inventory to vendors. Not only do the assets decrease, the amount of working capital needed to operate a business also decreases. Order fulfillment. Order fulfillment refers to the involved in responding to customer orders. Fulfillment time can be an important criterion for customers. Common approaches. The engineer to order or the ETO. With these approaches, products are designed and built according to the customer's specifications. This approach frequently used for large-scale construction projects, custom home building, home remodeling, and for products made in job shops. The fulfillment time can be relatively lengthy because of the nature of the project as well as the presence of other jobs ahead of the new one. Make to order. With this approach, a standard product design is used, but production of the final product is linked to the final customer's specifications. This approach is used by aircraft manufacturers such as Boeing. Fulfillment time is generally less than with ETO fulfillment, but still very long. Assemble to order. With this approach, products are assembled to customer specification from a stack of standard and modular components. Computer manufacturers such as Dell operate using this approach. Fulfillment times are fairly short, often a week or less. Make to stock or MTS. With this approach, production is based on a forecast, and products are sold to the customer from finished goods stock. This approach is used in department stores and supermarkets. The order fulfillment time is immediate. A variation of this is e-commerce. Although goods have already been produced, there is a lag in fulfillment to allow for shipping. Logistics. Logistics refers to the movement of materials, services, cash, and information in a supply chain. Materials include all of the physical items used in a production process. In addition to raw materials and work in process, there are support items such as fuels, equipment, parts, tools, lubricants, office supplies, and more. Logistics includes movement within a facility, overseeing incoming and outgoing shipments of goods and materials and information flow throughout the supply chain. Movement within a facility. Movement of goods within a manufacturing facility is part of production. This picture shows many steps where materials move within a manufacturing facility. 1. From incoming vehicles to receiving. 2. From receiving to storage. 3. From storage to the point of use. 4. From one work center to the next or to temporary storage. 5. From the last operation to final storage. 6. From storage to packaging or shipping. 7. From shipping to outgoing vehicles. In some instances, the goods being moved are supplies. In other instances, the goods are actual products or partially completed products. And in still other instances, the goods are raw materials or purchased parts. Movement of materials must be coordinated to arrive at the appropriate destinations at appropriate times. Workers and supervisors must take care so that items are not lost, stolen, or damaged during movement.
Supply chain management. Topics to be discussed are the following: Wingman Shipping System. The Wingman supermarket chain has been cited as a leader in supply chain management in the grocery industry. Its distribution system provides a number of examples of strategies and tactics that contribute to its success in managing its supply chain. Distribution. Individual stores' orders are generated automatically on a daily basis. These are directed to the appropriate warehouses. Order fulfillment begins when a warehouse downloads a store's order to its information system. Methods and distribution. Cross-dock, a full inbound pallet is redirected to an outbound shipment. Cross-distribution. An inbound pallet is broken down into cases right on the dock, and then the cases are immediately distributed to outbound pallets. Vendor managed inventory. Vendors of some non-store brand items, such as bread and soft drinks, handled replenishment, and those items came directly from the vendor's warehouse to the stores. Warehouse replenishment items are handled as full pallets or broken down into cases, depending on quantities ordered. Black pick, an entire pallet of goods in the warehouse is placed on an outbound truck. Case pick, individual cases or package are pulled from inventory, placed on pallets and shrink wrapped, and then placed on the outbound trucks. Warehouse items. The system is semi-automated and only a few workers are needed to process orders and monitor the system. Warehouse items are classified for either conveyor or non-conveyor belt handling. This is an example of this distribution diagram. Collaboration with vendors. Occasionally, goods will fall of belt, and these items have to be inspected to see if they have been damaged. Damaged goods not only are costly, but they are also lost from inventory and must be replaced. Improved packaging also increases the numbers of goods that can be handled with the conveyor system. Forecasting. Wigmans implemented a program of consistent, low pricing. This program reduced the number of promotional and sale items, reduced much of the volatility in demand, and made forecasting and inventory planning easier. New approaches. Wigmans is now using RFID tags. The tags are very small microchips, no bigger than a grain of salt. Tags are somewhat similar to barcodes, but offer greater potential for supply chain management because they can be more quickly read and scanning devices that would warn when stocks of individual items are running low. Traffic management, incoming and outgoing shipments. This function handles schedules and decisions on shipping method and times, and external factors such as potential shipping delays or disruptions. Computer tracking of shipments often helps to maintain knowledge to the current status of shipment as well as to provide other up-to-date information on cost and schedules. Radio frequency identification, tracking goods, RFID. Radio frequency identification is a technology that uses radio waves to identify objects, such as goods in supply chains. This is done through the use of RFID tag that is attached to an object. Other data is to network connected RFID readers using radio waves. These are the example of microchips and the barcodes. Springdale Farm. The Springdale Farm is demonstration from located near Rochester, New York. The system includes a self-cleaning, laser-guided robot plus an automatic feeder, all managed by a software program tied into RFID tags worn by the cows. The accompanying software keeps track of data regarding the cow's health, history, milk production, and milk quality. RFID tags keeping the shelves stocked. The supply chain of the consumer packaged goods industry work well when sales are steady, but it often breaks down when confronted by a sudden surge in demand. RFID tags could change that by providing real-time information about the what's happening on the store shelves. This is the example of shelf stock process. Active RFID versus passive RFID. Alan Revenue RFID tag technology falls into two broad categories, passive or active. Active RFID has an onboard power supply, while passive relies on capturing and reusing a small portion of the wake-up signal's energy to transmit the RFID tag ID back to the receiver. This is a good news and a bad news situation. The good news is that passive tags can be manufactured and sold at a much lower price point today than active tags. The bad news is that passive tags often struggle to provide reliable reads given the performance limitation of a technology using on a small amount of power to push its signal off metal surface through the layer of palletized products and etc. Evaluating shipping alternatives. Evaluation of shipping alternatives is an important component of supply chain management. Considerations include not only shipping costs, but also coordination of shipments with other supply chain activities, flexibility, speed, and environmental issues. Shipping options can involve trains, trucks, planes, and boats. The incremental holding cost incurred by the using and slower alternatives and computed as incremental holding cost equals to h times d divided by 365, where each annual earning potential of shipped item D is that equals to difference in days between shipping alternatives. Third-party logistics. Third-party logistics is the term used to describe the outsourcing of logistic management. This might involve part of even all the logistic functions. Companies are turning over warehousing and distribution to companies that specialize in this area. Rise of the 3PL. Over 40% of companies plan to outsource more software from third-party logistic providers over the next 5 years, according to Beyond Software. A new strategic report developed by ARC, the Advisory Group, and Supply Chain Technologies News. Outsourcing is becoming the preferred choice for many companies, as evidenced by the strong growth of 3PLs and the increasing number of solution vendors that are offering hosted solutions.
This is the report number 8 of this topic, supply chain management. And the contents are number 1, creating an effective supply chain. Number 2, managing returns, challenges, and strategy. So the first one is creating an effective supply chain. Creating an effective supply chain requires a thorough analysis of all aspects of the supply chain. This one is described as strategic sourcing. This is sometimes the process to describe the products or services to reduce cost and reducing waste. The SCORs or the supply chain operation references. Number 1, of course, we have the plan. This one is to manage the resources to go into the meeting expected customer demand of product and service. Number 2 is the source. The source from the goods will provide the services needed to create the product, support or services to develop the system delivery, receiving the services upon the suppliers. Number 2 is make. This one is to provide the good producting, testing, and packaging goods, monitor quality, service levels, and product output, and worker productivity. Number 4, of course, the deliver. This one is to the shipments of the warehouse, carriers, and transport goods to the customers, set up invoicing system, receiving payments, and information among the supply chain partners. Number 5 is manage returns. Create a responsive and flexible network for receiving defective and excessive product from customers. Managing returns. This number 2 is managing returns. The product are returned to the companies of third-party handlers for a variety of reasons in a variety of conditions. Among them are defective products, recalled products, obsolete products, unsold products returned from retailers, product parts replaced in fields, items recycling waste. This one is the one who's facing the managing returns from the customers or suppliers. Reverse logistic is the process of the physical transporting returned items, gatekeeping, screening return goods to prevent incorrect acceptance of goods. Number 3 is avoidance, finding ways to minimize the number of items that are returned. Closed loop supply chain, a manufacturer controls both forward and reverse shipments. This one is the condition of the products that must be returned from the customers. Number 3 is the challenges. Of course, the often dynamic supply chain environment and complexity of the supply chains can make managing them a very challenging. In business, there is always a challenge. Barriers to integration of separate organization. This one is to manage the chain management efficient across the entire supply chain, getting CEOs, board of directors, managers, and employees on boards. This one is to convince the potential of payoffs from the supply chain management and to getting managers, workers to adopt new attitudes and practices that are consistent to effective supply chain operation is a real challenge. This one is the must be taken into account in structuring a supply chain, dealing with trade-offs. Number one is lot of size. Ordering this one is the producing or ordering a large size of yields benefits in terms of quantity discounts, lower annual setups. It also creates bullwhip effector. Number two is inventory. Of course, the inventory suppliers to ship full tank loads instead of partial loads in order to spread shipping cost over as many units as possible. This leads to higher holding cost of customers. Number three is lead time. This one is waiting for sufficient orders. About this one is the full loads or mentioned as previously. Number four is product variety. This one is the generalist means smaller lot sizes of those products. Number five is the cost. This one is the cost of the product shipping large lots. Cross-docking, a technique where goods arriving at the warehouse from a supplier are unloaded from supplier truck or loaded into outbound trucks, thereby avoiding warehouse storage. This one is to avoid the warehouse storage about the supplier's goods. Delayed differentiation, product of standard components of subassembles which are held until late in the process of adding differentiating features. Disintermination, reducing one more step in supply chain, cutting one more small business, variety and uncertainty, and response time. These three would be good friends upon this challenges topic. Small business may be reluctant to embrace supply chain management because it can be involved specialized, no, and as well as sharing the sensitive information outside companies. And variability and uncertainty is the incoming of shipments from the suppliers, operations, response time, of course, the changing condition, impair the ability of supply chain to quickly. And the last one is the strategy. In the business, you must have the strategy. Upon achieving the effective supply chain requires integration of all the aspects of the chain. However, lean supply chains can release supply chain risk and necessitate increased inventories of all those. Strategy has been joint planning and coordination are the keys to supply chain success. And of course, these four topics that I've read are part of supply chain management, which can help and lead to the most effective supply of the flow of goods and services between business and location. It includes the movement and storage of raw materials, work in process, and finished goods, as well as end-to-end order fulfillment from the point of origin to point of consumption. It can also help to manage those who's been returned from the suppliers and facing those challenges among business, also in applying the strategy and enlighten the business. And that would be all for the report number